All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some examples of solving equations with fractions. I would recommend that you pause the video, work out the equations yourself, then come back and see my explanations to see if you did a good job. All right, first equation here, we have an addition equation, x plus 5/6 equals 2/5. So in order to isolate x, I need to remove this positive 5/6, so I'm going to do that by subtraction. So I have to subtract 5/6 from both sides of this equation. These cancel out, leaving me with an x equals on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I have to remember the rule for adding and subtracting with fractions, and that is that I must have a common denominator. So I have to think about my denominators here, 5 and 6, and think about the least common multiple of 5 and 6, and that would be 30. So I have to change both of these fractions so that they have a denominator of 30. So 2/5 is going to become something over 30, and negative 5/6 is going to become negative something over 30. Remember, we do this by multiplication. So I had to multiply 5 times 6 to get 30. So I have to multiply the top by 6 as well. 2 times 6 is 12. And in the bottom, 6 times 5 equals 30. And so I have to multiply the top of this fraction by 5 as well. And that gives me 25. So I have here a positive 12 over 30 and a negative 25 over 30. So I have to follow my integer rules. So different signs, subtract, and keep the sign of the bigger number. So 25 minus 12 is 13. And since 25 is bigger, this is going to be a negative 13 over 30. All right, looking at this next example here, we have x minus 2/3 equals 2.5. Now, my recommendation would be whenever you have mixed numbers in an equation, first step, I would go ahead and convert those mixed numbers into improper fractions. So I'm going to rewrite this here, x minus 2/3 equals 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5, so that's 5 over 2. And now I can go ahead with the rest of my steps. So here I have to get rid of a negative 2/3, so I'm going to add 2/3 to both sides. These cancel out here, and I get x equals, and again to the right, I need common denominators, and the least common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. So 5 over 2 is going to become something over 6, and 2/3 is going to become something over 6. Once again, 2 times 3 is 6, so I have to do 5 times 3, and that's 15. And here, 3 times 2 is 6, so I have to do 2 times 2, and that's 4. And now I can add these together. So I have 15 plus 4 is 19, so x equals 19 over 6. And usually, when you are solving an equation, it's okay for your answer to remain an improper fraction as long as it is in simplest form, and this fraction is in simplest form. But if I wanted to go ahead and convert this back to a mixed number, I would just think, well, 6 goes into 19 3 times, because that's 18. And 19 minus 18 is 1. So 19 over 6 equals 3 and 1/6. All right, so now let's take a look at some examples of multiplication equations with fractions. So here we see 3/4 x equals 12. X is being multiplied by 3/4, and we need to undo that. We normally undo multiplication by division, but we have to remember how it is that we divide when fractions are involved. So let's say I had to do 10 divided by 5 over 6. What we learned is we could use the concept of reciprocal to convert this division problem into a multiplication problem. So we keep the first term, we change division into multiplication, and we flip, or we get the reciprocal of the second term. And many of us learn this as keep, change, flip. And what this does is it makes it very easy to get the answer here, because 10 times 6 is 60, and 1 times 5 is 5, and 60 divided by 5 is 12. So 10 divided by 5/6 is 12. So we're going to use that concept of reciprocal to solve these multiplication equations with fractions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to flip and multiply. What that means is when we go to solve multiplication equations that involve fractions, we're going to flip the coefficient, we're going to get the reciprocal, and we're going to multiply both sides by that flipped number. So the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/3. 4/3 times 3/4, they cancel each other out. This is called multiplicative inverse. When you multiply a number by its reciprocal, the answer is always 1. So this leaves us with 1x right here. And over here, I can multiply 12 over 1 times 4 over 3. Now, hopefully, many of you remember the concept of cross-simplifying. When I'm multiplying with fractions, only when I am multiplying with fractions, I can match the top of one fraction with the bottom of the other and simplify. So 12 and 3 can both be divided by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 4 times 4 is 16, and 1 times 1 is 1. So 16 over 1 equals 16. So x equals 16. So now this next example here you see has mixed numbers. And what we need to do whenever we're going to multiply or divide with mixed numbers is convert them to improper fractions. So let's go ahead and do that first. So 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So this becomes negative 3 over 2x equals 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27. So that equals 27 over 4. And so what we need to do again is, in order to undo multiplication by negative 3 over 2, is we need to flip and multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides of this equation by negative 2/3. We use parentheses so that we do not confuse our multiplication with subtraction, okay? Technically, you should do this here as well. So again, negative 2/3 times negative 3 over 2. Again, multiplicative inverse. This becomes 1x. And over here, again, I can do some cross simplifying. 27 and 3 can be divided by 3. So this becomes a 9. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. So this becomes a 1. And this becomes a 2. And we can multiply, remembering that this first fraction, 27 over 4, is positive, and this is a negative 2/3. So 9 times 1 is 9, and 2 times 1 is 2. And it's negative because positive times negative is negative. So x equals negative 9 over 2, or negative 4.5. Okay, so in our last example here, we can see that we have 5x equals 10/13. And we might think, well, we don't need to flip and multiply here because our coefficient is a whole number. But the other side of the equation is a fraction. So yes, it would work best here to flip and multiply. So we're going to do that. The reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. So we're going to multiply both sides by 1/5. Again, these cancel out. This leaves me with 1x. And on the other side here, I can again cross simplify. 10 and 5 can be divided by 5. So this becomes a 1. This becomes a 2. And 2 times 1 is 2. And 13 times 1 is 13. So x equals 2/13. All right, I hope this video helped you to understand how to solve equations with fractions.